Frontiersman Joe Walker has spent years scouting and exploring America's vast western wilderness. But after leading a daring expedition in search of a route to California, he stumbled into a potentially disastrous confrontation.
Look alive, fellas.
Following a violent clash with members of the Paiute tribe,
Hey, stop. Hold the fire!
Walker's men are now surrounded by dozens of warriors eager for revenge.
There'll be no firing until I give a command. All right.
Putting his life on the line, Walker attempts to defuse the conflict before any more lives are lost.
Tell your warriors to stay back.
But despite his efforts to keep the peace, Joe Walker is now facing the deadliest fight of his life.
Fire!
In the annals of mountain man lore, few had as eclectic a career as did Joseph Walker. A career that literally goes from the War of 1812 up to and beyond the California Gold Rush.
He was such a stable force. He was so dependable, he was so calm, cool, and collected that he never really got anybody's attention.
He should stand shoulder to shoulder with figures such as David Crockett, Kit Carson, Jim Bridger, and yet he's still relatively unknown to many people now.
Joseph Walker grows up on the fringe of the wilderness with a longing for adventure, just as a new chapter of American history is being made.
Walker is from Tennessee, and he's the middle child of 7, a large family.
Joe Walker might have followed in one of the family trades, except for his cousin, Sam Houston, who will one day make American history of his own.
Hey, Joe. You heard, right? You gonna join up?
Holy cow, Sam. When'd you join?
Walker's cousin has arrived with the news of war between the United States and the Native American Creek Nation.
Like everyone in Tennessee, the Walker family is horrified by the news that comes up from Alabama. 500 people have been killed, and the Creeks have joined hands with the British in the War of 1812.
Hard to imagine in the Army, Sam.
Well, it's Ensign Houston now. I've just enlisted, as should you.
Tell them all it won't be easy.
Joe, this is your time.
Sam Houston convinces Joe Walker to join in what sounds like a patriotic adventure. Which turns out instead to be a bloody and horrifying experience.
Joseph Walker is essentially a teenager, a boy soldier in this battle at Horseshoe Bend. It had to have made a huge impression on Walker.
The brutal Battle of Horseshoe Bend leaves dozens of Creek Indians and American soldiers dead or wounded. And it teaches Joe Walker an abhorrence for violence that stays with him the rest of his life.
Joe! Glad to see you among the living. I thought for sure you'd copped it in that last charge. Well, Lord, wasn't it glorious?
I didn't even know we'd won.
Well, of course we did. The general says so. We can tell our grandchildren we fought with Old Hickory.
Well, go fetch some water for these poor fellows.
Walker would have seen a lot of this bloodshed, a lot of this bloodletting, which at times was very, very brutal. And certainly it made an impression on Joseph Walker.
Ready our horses. Let's go upriver 5 miles to meet with the remainder of the militia. This army has achieved a great and fortunate victory. You have earned the gratitude of your country. No men have ever acted more gallantly or fell more gloriously. Soldier. Thank you, soldier.
It seems reasonable that this might have been the moment when he realized that he wasn't destined to be an Indian fighter. He was destined for something else, perhaps to be an explorer.
Sam Houston's journey will eventually take him to Texas and lasting fame. But Walker's future lies in the uncharted reaches of the farthest west. Following the Creek War, Walker comes of age as a respected trapper and scout on the rugged frontier of Missouri. Along the way, he makes a lifelong friend of a one-time minister turned mountain man, Bill Williams. Together, Walker and Williams range across the frontier, even traveling into Spanish territory. And as two of the few Americans ever to have explored the Southwest, they attract the attention of a colorful character named William Becknell.
You Joe Walker?
Well, depends who's asking.
William Becknell, sir. And may I say, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I searched you out over half of Missouri.
Well, reckon you found him? That's old Bill Williams?
Charmed. Why don't we sit and have a talk?
All right.
William Becknell was an all-around colorful character. He had done many things in his life, including losing a race for a seat in the Missouri legislature.
Becknell was about $20,000 in debt, had been in debtor's prison, had been threatened with going back if he didn't make more money to pay off his creditors.
So he begins looking for a way to get rich and maybe famous. And so he begins looking towards the Southwest.
Santa Fe is Mexican now, not Spanish. And the door is open for trade to whoever can get there first. Now, I have wagons and I have teams, but I need men.
We've been there once, almost starved on the way back. You ever ate a mule's ear?
Pardon my friend, Mr. Becknell. The road to New Mexico is long, dry, and, well, just prowling with Indians of the fiercest sort.
Precisely why I need intrepid men like yourself by my side, Mr. Walker.
Becknell was keeping up on the news. He knew that the Spanish Empire was finished. And of course, the Spanish restrictions on trade coming from the United States were going to end. So this was the time to be the first to open up Santa Fe to American commerce.
Now, anyone who guides me safely through Santa Fe will share in the profits and recognition my enterprises will earn.
All right, Mr. Becknell. We will think about it. We'll let you know.
Neither Walker nor Williams trusts the fast-talking trader, but the lure of exploration is difficult for Walker to resist.
He couldn't find his hat with 2 hands.
Yeah, well, maybe so. First ones through Santa Fe with a packed train. They'll make their pile for sure. Hey, who knows? Maybe we'll get to California this time.
Or maybe we'll bury our bones in the desert. Yeah, count me in. Someone's got to look after you.
In September 1821, Walker leads the first trading expedition down what will become legendary as the Santa Fe Trail.
The Santa Fe Trail became one of the bloodiest roads in all of human history. It's like a Mad Max movie. Once you get through one group that's likely to attack you, you're going to run into another one.
For Walker, it's the adventure of a lifetime. But for Becknell, it's torment. Made worse by the fact that Bill Williams, a former minister, has a line of scripture for every occasion.
Was the journey quite as difficult last time, Bill?
The Lord himself will go before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forget you.
Wish it wasn't so blasted hot, though.
Ho, 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 ho.
The appearance of a hostile Apache war party isn't entirely unexpected. But neither Becknell nor Bill Williams expect Walker to place himself directly in its path.
Ho, 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 ho.
Frontier scout and explorer Joe Walker is leading one of the first expeditions to ever travel the Santa Fe Trail. But when hostile Apaches charge out to attack, he doesn't hesitate to confront them head-on.
Friends?
But what starts as a vicious attack quickly turns into a cautious conversation instead.
Them.
One's ability to negotiate with native peoples, to try to stay out of trouble, was really important. And at this, Joe Walker was a master.
Joe, how on earth did you do that?
Oh, that was easy. I just told him I was robbing you myself. Told him you were a bunch of greenhorns with nothing worth stealing. Well, we best get on, in case they decide to take some scalps for fun, huh?
When a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him.
Suppose so, Bill. Tell you what, though, when we get back, I'm gonna talk to that fella about running for office.
Thanks to Walker, Becknell's party survives the Santa Fe Trail and arrives to a warm welcome in the settlements of New Mexico.
Fino, 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfecto para tu esposa.
Here was a new route that was going to essentially bring, a giant Walmart superstore right to their doorstep.
Estados Unidos, lo glorioso del oeste.
And by getting Becknell to Santa Fe, Walker's helped create the most famous trail of the frontier era.
So very quickly, the Santa Fe Trail became this huge road of commerce. And then, of course, it became a military road of empire and conquest.
We go past the mountains in California.
But Joe Walker hasn't come this far just to turn a profit. Instead, he's eager to talk to members of the Navajo tribe.
How far? How long? The mountains?
And learn from this ancient people what no American of the time knows: an overland route to far-off California.
3 months.
See that, Joe? Spanish silver come all the way up from Peru.
Peru? Where is that exactly?
All the way on the other side of the world. Even farther than California.
Beyond that, Great Western Ocean.
Walker had the wanderlust. California, that's always the golden land. There's always the dream of what lies over those mountains.
In the years following his adventure to Santa Fe, Walker works first as a lawman and then as a horse trader, before an unexpected reunion at a frontier trading post reawakens his explorer's spirit.
Well, if it is, it's Sam Houston. Joe Walker. Hey.
I hoped I'd meet you here.
Well, last I heard, you gone to live with the Cherokee of all things.
I did. I've got a world of things to tell you, Joe. Maybe something of an opportunity, too.
Well, let me just go talk to my partner real quick. I'll be right back for you. That's Sam.
And as he did so many years before, Sam Houston has an extraordinary adventure to offer his cousin Joe.
Well, thank you. I read all about that Becknell expedition, but your name was never written in it once.
Well, Becknell wanted all the glory. He can have the headaches, too.
Well, listen, Joe.
There's this army captain named Bonneville, French by birth. He's looking to take leave and lead a trapping expedition up the mountains. Only he needs a guide.
Benjamin Bonneville is one of the most mysterious characters in all of Western history. He's French, born in France during the Revolutionary era, eventually goes to West Point, becomes an army officer. He's, though, got an air of aristocracy about him.
Yeah, I had my fill of military ways in the Creek War, Sam. And I don't think I take orders particularly well, so.
Joe, you dummy. You don't have to join the army. He'd hire you as a civilian scout. At a handsome salary, too. So if you want to explore the distant West, I know you do. This is a first-class ticket.
Joe Walker saw a real opportunity to go into new lands that he had always dreamed about. Walker certainly saw himself as someone who could be right alongside Lewis and Clark in terms of opening up the West.
Maybe I'll give him a little chat.
But by deciding to meet with Bonneville, Walker's about to get entangled in the ambitious destiny of the United States itself. A week after his encounter with Sam Houston, Walker arrives at the bustling expedition camp of Benjamin Bonneville.
Bonneville wanted to sort of impress everybody with his sort of bona fides. I mean, who he was. He's an important army officer. He's obviously got connections with the government.
Before I unfold my plan, I should say that I've never heard of you before.
Well, that's all right. Never heard of you either.
If you please, tell me of your accomplishments.
Look, Captain, I've been to Santa Fe and back. Ranged up and down the Missouri frontier since I was a boy. Get along with Indians better than most. And when I give my word, I keep it. I think that's accomplished enough. If it don't suit, I wish you luck.
I will give you the opportunity to prove yourself, Mr. Walker.
Sure. Soon as we talk terms. And I'll be choosing the other scout.
Whom else would you employ?
No one employs Bill Williams. Bill! So this is him, is it? Mm-hmm.
Walker, you will make certain of this person?
Whomever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm.
He used to be a minister.
And as Bonneville's frontier guide, Walker not only gets a chance to see a new world, he'll help create an American empire stretching to the Pacific shore. Bonneville's expedition to the far west sets out in May of 1832.
Walker is charged with helping to mount an expedition whose size and scale are almost unparalleled in the history of the American frontier.
But soon, the expedition leaves the relative safety of Missouri.
Once you cross the Missouri River, you start to leave what was then the established United States.
And as he did on the Santa Fe Trail, Walker is able to turn potential enemies into friends.
There are a lot of things that go into communication. That has to be done in a thoughtful manner, because if it's perceived as an aggressive approach, it's going to have negative ramifications.
They say the Cheyenne are riding in numbers against the Crow, but they haven't come this far down south yet.
Very good, Walker. Well done.
All right, come on. Let's
But on such a long, difficult journey, friends can also turn into enemies.
That's it, that's it. Come on. It's almost there, almost there. Come on, Bill. Come on, Bill.
You stupid bittocks! Why can't you watch your step?
Come on. All right, Bill. Hey. All right, let's... Hey.
Joe Walker always tries to keep the peace.
Let's calm down. It's all right, calm down.
Step on my feet. We're not feet. All right.
I will have that man in irons.
But this time, the problem is his own best friend.
Hey. Let's calm down.
Frontiersman Joe Walker has led an ambitious expedition halfway to the Rocky Mountains. Now, he must defuse a sudden conflict before the Enterprise descends into chaos.
Bill, stop pitching a fit, okay? You're liable to hurt someone with that thing.
If I do, it'll be that lummox who can't keep his feet.
All right, Bill, we're all tuckered out. We're tuckered out. Now just put your knife up. Huh? I know you're going too far. Come on.
But having settled one conflict, Walker immediately faces another.
Now, as I said, place that man in irons.
Nope. No one will be punished that way, Captain.
You forget I am your employer and the leader of this brigade.
I remember just fine. Thing is, me and Bill will up and quit this whole outfit. And that little map that you've been working on following my trails, well, yep, I reckon it stops right about here.
Bonneville quickly realizes that his expedition will grind to a halt without Walker's help.
Joe Walker worked the Santa Fe Trail. He understood Western transportation in ways that Bonneville didn't have a clue about.
In Walker, Bonneville has found the best guide he could have hoped for.
If you are satisfied that your man can control himself, we can proceed.
What you say, Bill?
Blessed be the merciful, for they shall receive mercy.
All right, let's get this wagon, boys. Spirituality is fine and all, Bill, but I think less is more, if you know what I mean.
Walker is steadily proving his value to Benjamin Bonneville.
On three. 1, 2, 3.
And now he's about to learn what this mysterious French captain is really doing on the frontier. After weeks of westward travel with Benjamin Bonneville, Walker is suspicious of his true motives.
That fancy French so-and-so wanted to see strange sights. Well, they'll get much stranger than this.
Yeah. I don't think that Bonneville is either a trapper or an explorer. I think this whole thing's got a purpose.
So what is it then?
I don't rightly know.
Mr. Walker.
I reckon I'm about to find out. Mr. Bonneville?
I am sure you are aware that no wagon train has ever attempted to cross the South Pass.
Well, I am. Bill Sublett says it can't be done, though, so...
I would like you to guide me over the pass and through the Continental Divide with my wagons.
Wow. The South Pass was the long dreamed-for overland route across the Continental Divide that was widely recognized as being the key to westward migration.
The question is, why? Bridger and Fitzpatrick have been trapping over there for years with nothing but horses and mules. There's no need for a trapper to bring wagons out there, Captain.
I trust I may speak in confidence. I am attempting to build the fortification on the other side of the mountain. That is all you need to know.
I'll get your outfit over South Pass, Captain. On the honor of your word that any future explorations California, it's mine to lead.
I have no interest regarding the Pacific shore.
All respect, but ain't this map right here open to California?
Bonneville's expedition was in fact a cover story for a secret mission to find an overland route across the Sierras to California.
Because if that can be done, then South Pass can become the great road to the far west, to Oregon and to California, even more important than the Santa Fe Trail. It's really a spy mission on a grand scale.
It's mostly blank, too. I'd like to see it filled in just as much as you would. I'd like to be the man that does it.
Well done, Joseph. You are perceptive. And you have my word.
Bonneville wanted to help America reach its continental destiny, and so Walker's going to have a role in both of these great trails of the West.
In July of 1832, the man who helped blaze the Santa Fe Trail makes history for a second time. Holding up his end of the bargain with Bonneville, he's led the first wagon train to ever cross the Rocky Mountains. Walker's accomplishment marks a major turning point in America's destiny.
Green River Valley, Bill. Gotta be honest, never thought I'd make it out here.
If you could take wagons west, you could take your families with you. Something that seemed absolutely impossible. He and Joe Walker open up the gate. And now that flood is going to come and nothing's going to be able to stop it. A flood of humanity.
Captain Bonneville! We made it! This is how empires are made! By men like us!
But Joe Walker hasn't forgotten his ultimate goal of reaching California, and now he's halfway there.
"30 degrees, 15 minutes.
Got a good winter camp, Captain, if you plan to stay.
I will consider my plans. Joseph, this is your doing, as much as mine or anyone else. I hope, truly, you take pride in our accomplishment.
Somebody would have done it sooner or later. But I'm glad I could help.
There is nothing in Benjamin Bonneville's whole career that shows he had the competence to achieve this. So it was Joe Walker who was instrumental in getting that wagon across South Pass.
You reckon it's time I help you fill in the rest of that map?
Yes. Very much, yes. Joseph, Godspeed.
In July 1833, Bonneville keeps his word to Walker by sending him to discover an overland route to California.
This is it, Bill. California's that way. Great Western Ocean beyond.
Bonneville gives what to Joe Walker is a dream assignment. He wants him to find a trail to California and explore the trapping possibilities out there.
Oh, go ahead, I know you wanna.
Well, there is one I've been saving. When the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us into this land, a land which flows with milk and honey.
I think that's the best one yet, Bill.
But as Walker sets out in pursuit of his dream, he little expects that it will turn into a nightmare. Frontiersman Joe Walker has just made history by leading the first wagon train across the Rocky Mountains. Now, he's setting off on his lifelong dream of exploring California, little knowing how difficult the trek will be.
We don't know what Bonneville's exact instructions to Walker were, but we know that Walker is now on his own. But there's always a dream of another significant water route that would connect the interior of the United States to the Pacific Ocean. It's likely that he was instructed to search for the famous Buenaventura River.
The Buenaventura River has been a prize sought by every explorer since Lewis and Clark, and Walker is eager to claim it.
Walker leads this party down to the Great Salt Lake, and then he decides to cut immediately to the west, and that land is incredibly inhospitable.
But after weeks of weary travel, all he's found is more desert.
I suspect you're about to say that there ain't no Western River.
I just don't understand, Bill. Every explorer through here since Coronado thought there'd be a great river going over to the Western Ocean. I was hoping I'd be the one to discover it.
Yet as disappointing as this is, far worse is yet to come for Walker's expedition to California.
To go from the interior across the mountains to California is one of the most treacherous, indeed hellish routes one could imagine taking.
And very quickly they realized that there's no water anywhere to be found.
Several weeks into his trek, Walker's expedition reaches an area known as the Humboldt Sink. Where they encounter the first native tribe they've seen since entering the Great Basin Desert.
Look alive, fellas. We got some folks here with us.
When Walker and his men finally reach the Humboldt Sink, they also confront the native peoples that live in the area, the Paiute tribe. And the Paiutes are a terribly impoverished people.
Paiutes have not had significant contact with American explorers.
We want no fuss, fellas.
Time and again, Walker's managed to keep relations with native tribes peaceful. But the fearsome Paiutes are unlike any tribe he's encountered before.
We're all friends.
Walker wants to have a good relationship with these folks, and the Paiutes can't believe all the wonders that these white men have brought in, and very quickly they're roaming around the camp.
They might know a good way to the mountain. Hey, stay calm, fellas. Hey, stop it. Stay calm. We're friends. Stay calm.
For the first time in his frontier life, Walker's met a native tribe he can't befriend.
Let him go.
And the problem is about to get far worse. As Walker's men attempt to trap beaver near the Humboldt River, the Paiutes become increasingly bold.
Bill. Hey. Bill. Hey, shove off now. You hear?
The Paiutes had been pilfering the traps. They were getting the beaver out of the traps, and Walker's men are constantly trying to shoo them off. And they just keep kind of pestering them.
Hey, you darn pest! Get out of there! Get off of there!
Get out of
Huh? Go! Get now! Hey, you thieving scoundrel! Shove off!
Get out!
Shove off! Get! No, boys, come on! Hey, man! Boys, hold your fire! Hey, man! Hold your fire! Hold your fire!
And indeed, 3 Paiutes are killed. So everything Walker has done to keep peace has now just gone to smash.
Walker's managed to avoid conflict with every native people he's ever met.
Bill, for heaven's sake, what happened here?
He's furious with his men, which is very unusual for Walker.
We're sorry, Joe. Things just went sideways.
And we're in a heap of trouble now. Come on, we gotta get back to camp. Boys, come on!
But now, a deadly tragedy may provoke a pitched battle that he has no way to avoid.
Shut off! Hey, boys, hold your fire! Hold your fire!
The the expedition of frontiersman Joe Walker has blundered into a violent clash with the Paiute tribe.
For heaven's sake, Bill! What happened here?
And now, Walker must somehow prevent more violence while keeping his men safe from retribution.
We're in a heap of trouble now. Come on, we gotta get back to camp, boys, come on! What are you thinking?
No! Not until we bury these poor souls, Joe.
Best do it quick. As soon as the others find out, we'll be back for revenge.
For a few tense days, the Paiutes keep their distance from Walker's men. But the fragile truce doesn't last.
Walker is a greater problem now because the Paiutes are infuriated and several hundred of them come.
They haven't attacked, but they're certainly acting like they're going to.
You happy, Bill? How do you reckon we can get out of this fix?
We're gonna have to fight, Joe.
Not unless we have to. We need to settle this with no more killing. I don't think they know what these rifles will do if we have to fight.
Despite being heavily outnumbered, Walker realizes that he has a technological advantage.
Paiutes, they haven't seen very many white men, and they're not sure what this thing called a gun is.
The only firearms they may have seen were probably in the hands of other rival Indian tribes, traded to them.
Walker even makes a point of demonstrating to the Paiute chief what a rifle is and what it can do.
You gonna knock one of those off?
Easy as pie.
Wait.
He thinks that that's enough, but it isn't.
Sometimes you're walking into a nightmare. You're walking into absolute danger. He sensed that now. Joe could sense the sort of nervousness of his tough compatriots.
I don't think we're getting out of this one, Joe.
There will be no firing until I give a command.
Paiutes are ready to fight. Walker again pleads with them not to, warns them that this is going to be terrible for them.
Tell your warriors to stay back. We do not want to kill them. Our rifles, powerful. Tell your warriors, put their weapons down.
Joe Walker's desire for peace can't overcome the first law of the frontier. Sometimes it's either kill or be killed. Frontiersman and explorer Joe Walker has abhorred violence since his boyhood experience in war. But despite doing everything he can to avoid bloodshed, his men open fire on a Paiute war party.
You have a standoff between bows and arrows and rifles. You can imagine who wins that particular standoff.
Stop firing! Cease fire! Stop firing! Cease fire!
The one-sided battle ends as quickly as it started, leaving dozens of Paiutes lying dead.
Walker hated to be in conflict with Native Americans because he just had so much empathy for them.
What have we done, Bill? What have we done?
39 Paiutes were killed. It's a terrible catastrophe for Walker, who wants to make peace every chance he can, but is now a warrior.
the senseless massacre will haunt Walker the rest of his life. But for now, his journey must continue. Weeks into their grueling trek across the Great Basin, Walker and his men are exhausted and tormented by thirst.
I think I see water, Bill. A full lake, a few miles off.
Ain't no water there, Joe. I saw phantom lakes like that in Santa Fe on the trail. I thought that was the hottest place on earth until I came here. Some places, man, just ain't meant to be. I think this is one of those.
We best get on, man.
But Walker's closer to the end of his journey than the beginning, and he's on the verge of an amazing achievement.
He goes on to California, crosses the Sierra, and most historians think he probably came down through the Yosemite Valley.
Bill, not gonna believe this.
Today, the Yosemite Valley draws millions of yearly visitors, but Walker may have been the very first American to see it.
Joe Walker deserves enormous credit for discovering Yosemite, which of course would become one of our great national parks.
And having reached his goal at last, Walker witnesses a final marvel, the Great Leonid Meteor Shower of 1833.
We did it, Bill. We're on the Golden Shore.
And amazement seized them all and filled them with awe, saying, "We have seen extraordinary things today."
For Walker, many adventures still lie ahead, but his trek to California will always be his greatest.
Walker was right there in the thick of it at many of the seminal moments. It was said that he didn't follow trails, he blazed them.
In Missouri, the Santa Fe Trail, the Great Plains, the southwestern deserts of what is now New Mexico and Arizona, all the way to California.
He was an instrument of bringing people into the West. This was a man who had his hand in many great Western adventures